So way back when I first got married and Robin and I started having kids, we lived in a townhouse and this frat house moved in next to us. A bunch of impossibly good looking young kids having the time of their lives, playing out on the front lawn, constantly making noise. And there was one guy there in the group who just was as friendly and as personable as anybody could be, smart. And then I find out he owns the house, and that was a news to me because like I had never met such a strange animal. You if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, I was homeless at 27. I didn't have my shit together, and this young man just seemed to have career. He had his stuff together. He was building a business, doing all kinds of stuff, and I just never knew what that was like. So over the years, we have kept in touch. We have both professionally and personally, and I've watched him grow. I watched him get married, raise a family, get gray in his beard finally, so I don't feel so old. And I watched him build these incredible businesses and these incredible following. And I thought he needs to be on the podcast, and I need to share him with you. So let me give you a little bit of formal background on Rob Chevez. He graduated from American University with a degree in psychology, which is probably why he's so smart about people. That house he bought gave him a taste for real estate. He's had several businesses, but then he and his wife Kim started the Casa Group to fix up and flip homes and start making money in that way. And that turned into a force in the Washington, D.C. area, where in 2018, they did $118 million in real estate. Oh my God, in 1 year. That is crazy. And they're one of the top 1% sales teams for Keller Williams Realty. He also he'll talk about some of the stuff that he does, but he leads communities of people. He's not successful in and of himself. His whole world is about making other people successful and helping them with lives, which is why I wanted him on the podcast to share with you. Rob, thanks for being on the show.
Mark, thanks, brother. I love how you introduced me as being the kid with the frat house next door. I think that's awesome, right?
Yeah, no, Robin and I were trying to grow up. We were like, had one foot of like, we want to have fun too, but then we were raising kids, and it was like, so like and I was trying to be an adult and have a job and wear a suit and all that stuff. So it was really hard. But the reason you're here is you are unquestionably one of my favorite humans to walk the earth. I have been in awe of your humanity, your attitude, the way you connect with people, and what you bring to life, the way you raised your daughter, the way you live in your marriage, everything that you've done, I have followed closely. I'm older than you, but you're a role model to me in how to be in the world. And so I said, I really just want to share you with the people who listen to this podcast, because I think you have like not a specific subject, but just on life, you have something to share. So thanks for being here, really.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Yeah.
So let's just talk about, how we built Rob. How do we build a guy who is really interested in other people, does his work to stay positive, to stay in the middle of things. And, we'll talk about the real life's ups and downs in there. But how did you build Rob? Like, what is your driving philosophy that's kind of your signpost to keep you on the even keel?
There's this, there's a little nurture and there's nature, right? I think
You were an army brat, right? Like you traveled around. So like a lot of people will use that to go, yeah, that's why my life is so messed up, because I never was in one place at one time. And you've used it for the complete opposite.
Yeah, I think it was, I attended 17 schools before the age of 14, right? I was the new kid like 17 times, right? And being the new kid, you have to learn how to integrate, you have to learn how to survive, you have to, and I always, there was always a little fear, but there was always excitement around being the new kid. And by the way, when you're doing it when you're younger, you don't know any better. So it's just like, it just becomes like part of your world. It's just normal, right? I'm like, oh, we're going to move, every year or every other year.
So my friend making skills need to be top notch.
They got to be good, right? They got to be good. And I was lucky, Mark. I have two incredibly amazing parents that have been, together for 50 years. my mom's an artist. My dad is, you know, just this really smart philosopher. So like at the dinner table at night, we would talk about history and philosophy and art. And, you know, when you're young, you don't realize how they're, you know, they're building you. They built me, right? Like the empathy. My mom was always so incredibly kind to people. And my dad was this militant, like we call him the general in our house, right? It was like, I was in bed by 8:30 every single night, right? Like in bed, like he had us on this routine and the
And that
schedule.
helped you because you were a wrestler in school, and sports were really important, so you needed to be top of your game.
Yeah. But you know what was really interesting? The one thing, the blessing that I always had was they never forced me to be something that I wasn't. They gave me the gift to be who I was, right? Like I wasn't the philosopher like my dad was, or the historian. Like I wasn't that guy, right? I was, for all intents and purposes, like that really driven kid that just like wanted to excel in sports, right? That was my thing. That was my way. And the reason, Mark, was because that was my way in to meet friends in all these new schools,
Ah, got it.
right? So I was always the little guy, right? So picture like, you know, I was always the little guy. Everybody would call me little man. That was my nickname when I was little, right? I was little, I was tough, I was and I wasn't afraid, right? And in fact, I never saw myself this is just funny, right? I never saw myself being any different in size, right? Not until like you look at a picture and you're like, man, I'm a short dude. I'm a little guy, right? But in my own mind, I was bigger, I was badder, I was stronger, I was, you know, and so I really started learning. I wrestled in college. Okay, so you know that I wrestled in college, and and the reason I became a psych major in college was because I suffered some extreme panic attacks, but there were silent panic attacks,
Mm.
right? I didn't know. What happened was I had this insatiable drive to win, right? I don't know where that comes from. Like I just wanted to like win, right? And I had this insatiable drive to be the best that I could possibly be. But during the course of doing that, it made me sick.
Mm.
It made me sick because I was worried about like always being in the best health. I was worried about, I had anxiety around performing at a high level, right? And I went to all these doctors and everybody was like, there's nothing wrong with him, right? And I'm like, there's something wrong. There's something physically wrong. And one day I'm just reading this men's health journal, and in there they describe my exact symptoms. It's like somebody sitting on my chest. I can't get enough air to breathe. And by the way, I'm performing as an athlete, and I can't breathe.
Mm.
Right. So I'm just pushing through this craziness, you know. And this was like my sophomore and junior year of high school. Like I tore my ACL. I dislocated all my fingers. I mean, it was like I was a mess, right? It's the only time I've ever journaled in my life, by the way, right? It was during this time. And and when I discovered that it was my mind that was playing tricks on me, right? Essentially, I literally was so eye-opening, was so liberating. I remember thinking, if my mind can make me sick, imagine how powerful my mind can make me if I channel it, if I understand how to channel it in the right way, right?
Hold on,
And
I don't want to skip over that, because that is the key for people taking their power. When I'm coaching people and I'm working with people and they have some wreckage in their life, if they can take responsibility for the choices, not the blame for the wreckage, but the
mm,
responsibility that, these decisions, these things that I did led to this outcome. Now they know they have the power to walk
yeah,
themselves out. So you just did something really powerful at a young age, where if my mind can make me this ill, maybe I can train my mind and I can use it on the other side. So I think that's a really powerful takeaway from your story.
yeah, it then helped me understand, you know, how to wrestle in college. So I wrestled Division I in college. It helped me understand. I had to learn my body. By the way, that was the other thing that I realized was that our bodies all react differently to different things. What we put in our body, the amount of sleep that we get, nobody has the secret prescription for you, Mark, right? Your prescription is specific to you, the amount of sleep you need, what you need to eat, what you need to drink. And so you need to learn your body. So I learned my body at an early age, right? I understood how my body functioned at an early age to be able to perform at a high level.
What did you learn?
Well, a couple things, right? I had a little bit of exercise induced asthma, right? And that's what brought that fear, that anxiety in, right? So I learned that in order to burn through that chemical, because it's a chemical on your lungs, I literally had to like have a whole nother match. I had to get myself exhausted, right? Exhausted before I would perform, another match.
Wow,
So
interesting.
I discovered this I was a really good tournament wrestler. As the tournament went on, I got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But it was always the first match that was really hard for me. And I couldn't understand why. And it was because my body had to burn this chemical, right? And once I burned it, then I could perform at a high level. So when I was in college, I just learned I had to get myself exhausted first. And then I had to go and perform, which is so counterintuitive. Like you want to conserve your energy.
Dude, it makes, because I had asthma when I was young. It makes perfect sense to me now why the beginning of anything is hell for me. And then once I get into it, it's a whole new ball game.
It's a whole new ballgame.
Never ever occurred to me until just now the light bulb went off on my head.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that took experimentation on myself to understand, like self-reflection, like why is my body doing this? Right. And then, I don't just throughout as I get older, I don't just certain things, right? I need a certain amount of sleep. I like 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I'm not one of these people that like need 4 hours. Like I like my sleep, my body, so I get to bed early. I get up early. I don't drink any alcohol anymore. Alcohol like just doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't serve me, right? So I learned that I'm missing an enzyme to process alcohol properly, right? And so the next day I feel like
I'm missing the maturity to process alcohol properly. I end up living in my car, right? So I was like, totally get it. It's interesting because money Twitter, like I follow money Twitter. I don't know why these driven people. And right now the big thing is giving up drugs and alcohol. It's now a fad, a thing that alcohol just impairs if you want to be peak performance. So it's kind of interesting.
Somewhere along the way, I correlated like I know what it feels like to feel really good. Like I know what it feels like to feel really good in the morning, right? And that like to have energy throughout my day. And anything that made me feel other than awesome, like didn't serve my life, right? So I didn't want to go there, right? I didn't want to go there. So, and over time, I've just learned.
Can I ask a specific question for,
Sure.
I love talking to athletes. My friend Tony Benici, was a world-class athlete when he was younger, and he's constantly getting injured now, but he still competes with his, teenage sons. He still does all kinds of stuff. And I've been injury plagued since before I was born. Like, for me to stay in shape, to do all those things, it's just been, work. How do you deal with being really able to, and I think the fact that you actually crashed and burned young really gave you a head start on that, because talking to athletes, like how do you go from relying on your body and being such a physical human to now aging in your late 40s, right? So now you have to treat your body differently. How do you deal with injuries, keep yourself in shape, get back on the wagon, like how do you keep that moving?
Well, to be honest with you, like I need to do better there, right? Like that, I feel like I have a pull-up bar in my bathroom, right? And every morning I'm doing a certain amount of pull-ups and a certain amount of push-ups. Past that, I know that yoga has been really good for me, right? So before pre-pandemic, uh, I was really just doing a lot of yoga and feeling really good about yoga. I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything to anybody anymore when it came to being an athlete, Like I see people go like, I'm gonna go do this like triathlon. I'm like, dude.
And I did that at 47. I was depressed and sick, and I ran the Marine Corps Marathon because I needed something outrageous to show my kids that I was pulling myself out and that I was pulling myself out.
I think that's awesome,
And
right?
I had 4 surgeries on my foot after that because
Oh,
nobody should ever do a fucking marathon. It's just inhuman.
well, you know what's so funny? I just watched Eco Challenge Fiji with Kim last night. I've been watching it. It's on Prime, and I'm like, something in me is like, I want to go do that, right? It looks like hell, and I want to do it. And why? Because it makes you feel like you're living,
Sure.
and like it makes you feel like you're living. So
So I don't want to get off the subject because I really
yeah,
want to just ask you.
sure,
So the philosophy, though, sure, we can all do better. COVID has really kind of thrown us all off. But
yeah.
when you're exercising and you get injured, how do you
Mm.
get the mindset to do the things like CrossFit people? Like, how do you work around the injury, keep yourself in the gym, keep yourself in the exercise, and get that mindset to keep yourself moving forward? I can lead the witness. So for me, I have an elliptical trainer. I bought the elliptical trainer probably 11 years ago now. No matter what happens to me, like I can't lift weights now because my shoulders hurt, or I can't do this. I always get on the elliptical. Like for 12 years, no matter what, even when I had foot surgery, I could still get on the elliptical for some strange reason. That's the one thing I've always had a constant to get back to. So for me, but now like I'm scared of lifting weights. So what I'm looking for you is, my friend Tony talks about modifying and all that stuff. How
Yeah.
do you keep yourself moving forward?
Yeah, I don't I quit baiting myself. Like I'm like, don't be a baby. Just like, and what I mean by that is you just reduce the weight, right? Everything is just about you just reduce everything, right? If my shoulder, because I had a shoulder problem as well, and I still have it, right? And like literally, I was just like, okay, what can I do to stay active? And um, and I just reduce the weight, use a lot of natural body weight, right? So using your natural body weight, and then quit being a baby. Like, I mean, I'm
There's
serious,
the college athlete.
right? I'm like a division. Like I've dislocated all these fingers. I've torn my ACL. I've I've um I've endured like some crazy, injuries and had to just perform through them. And so now it all seems like nothing, right? I'm like, oh, it's I
So all these people I see out in their 60s, they're running or they're playing racquetball. They're all that. It says basically just quit being a baby and go out and play racquetball.
just go do it. Now, I do believe that stretching. I do believe that stretching,
Yeah.
right,
That's the
is
other constant, by the way. The elliptical and stretching is something that has never left my routine.
I think that that is the concept because injury occurs because we're just getting tighter over time. Our muscles don't have the same flexibility as before. So I think if you just stay flexible, that's why I'm a big fan of yoga, right? If you stay flexible, um, I think that is the
What
key.
kind of yoga are you doing?
I just do hot yoga, right? Just
Okay.
do
Bikram.
Bikram hot yoga and do it and feel good about it and stretch and um, that will be as I sail into the sunset in my 80s, 90s, and past 100 because I'm gonna live past 100. It will be yoga, right? I have a very specific vision. I will be on the beach. I will be doing yoga, and I will be enjoying the view. Right?
Nice.
That's
So yeah, let me ask you about that. So you want to live, till past 100. What makes you so happy about life? What makes you so engaged with life that you care to be an old person in this world?
man. I mean, just everything around you, right? Like nature, the water, sounds, smells. Like it's all just like a gift. People. Um, I just find people fascinating. I enjoy people. I'm not an extrovert. You might think I'm an extrovert. I'm more of an internal person. Um, but
That's it. That's interesting because I watch you work a crowd, and people are surprised to find out that I'm an introvert. I cannot, like I can host a party and rock it with the best of them. But if I'm a guest at a party, it's like, how do I get out of here quickly?
Yeah, I'd rather go home and watch, Eco Challenge with my wife, and I'd rather do that. I'd rather read a book. I'd rather listen to a podcast. Um, but I am fascinated by people, right, and their stories, and I enjoy learning about their stories because they're fascinating. There's so much to learn there. There's so much to you know. There's so much. I guess that's what keeps me engaged is that I love learning, right? And I love kind of like these little incremental wins. So for me, it's like, am I better than I was the day before? Am I better than the day that I was before? Right? There's these little incremental wins, and over time, I know that my body will degrade. Like I won't be able to do like what I did before because of my body, but that's okay. Like my mind can continue to grow, right? Um, and I'm just gonna live. Dude, life's a gift. Life's a gift. I mean, I really feel like life's a gift, right? And so I walk around and I'm like, God, look at the sky. It's so blue. Maybe I have some weird chemical in my body that's like, I'm constantly the optimist and I enjoy. My wife would say, Rob, you live in a bubble, like this little bubble. Um,
What are
but
your
I,
parents' names?
Robert and Chayo.
Robert and Chayo. So I'm going to talk to my audience for a second, and we're just going to
Yeah.
leave you out. So I really thought that I would be able to crack the code so that you could take something from this conversation and have it in your life, and you could be more like Rob. But now we need to thank his parents for creating such a unique and sunny human being. I'm not so sure we can recreate him in the lab, but we can takes perspective from this conversation because it is infectious. Listening to you talk about that, it really does for me bring that. Every day, it's raining out. It's beautiful out there, right? Like there is something to pay attention to and to connect with every day.
I will. Here's if my mom and my dad would probably say Rob was like this since the day he was born, right? Like they were just like, hey, he's wired like this. So here's what I will tell you that I do constantly, right? I feed my mind with good things, good thoughts.
Feed the right wolf. Yes.
Yes. I mean, I feed my mind daily with something. I call it priming my day. I prime my day every single day with something that inspires me or something that excites me. And when I feel like I
So give me
prime,
an example. Give me an example of something.
yeah, my wife laughs at me all the time. I have my phone in the shower listening to a podcast. I'm either listening to Gary Vee, I'm listening to Tony Robbins, I'm listening to Joe Rohn, I'm listening to How I Built This. I'm listening, I'm learning, right? And um, and that feeds my soul. I don't know why. It just does. It feeds my soul, and then I get out and I'm like, okay, let's do this. I'm ready to go build a vision that I have in my head. And that's the other thing. I have a vision of things that I want in my head. And I know I've learned over time that if I could see it, if I can actually see it in my head, it becomes a reality.
Mm.
It's not, um, let me see if there's a book. Oops. This is a book. Oops. Okay. This is the book I read when I was in college, Psycho Cybernetics. Old book.
That's old school, man.
Old school book, right? This is the book that started walking me down the path of like, oh, I should probably, you know, get my psychology degree, right? But really, I read this as an athlete because
Mm.
it talks about creating a like visioning, like if you could practice it in your mind and in your dreams, you can. It's like the real thing, right? And so for me, what I've learned is if I can see it in my brain, it'll become a reality. It's not, oh, maybe. It will absolutely become a reality. It's just a matter of time, right? And I need to want to do it. And if I
So yeah, so you see it in your mind, and then you add the want to, you add emotion, you add little action steps, and
yeah,
and all of a sudden, what looks like miraculous, you can track back to uh, intention.
intention, and then but to me, that pattern of success, right? It's a pattern, right? Like that pattern of like learning and failing and growing and learning and failing, growing and learning, failing, growing. That the process of doing that makes me happy, right? The process of doing that. And what I've learned now that I can go back and track it is that that's what gives me integrity with myself. That's what gives me self esteem, right? I can look back and say, I did these things and that built my self esteem, right? It's like this incremental. And by the way, that I now learn the faster I fail, the more I succeed, which gives me more self esteem, right? The faster I fail. So failing is is actually a really positive thing in my mind, right?
Give me a failure, but give me a failure that knocked you for a loop, that you really needed to dig deep and learn something from it to come back stronger.
Sure, sure. You know, there was a period of my time, period in life with my wife, like turned to me and said she wanted a separation, right? And I thought that everything, because I have this natural disposition of like everything is sunny, right? I thought everything was great. I thought everything was fine. I had no idea that this person that was really close to me was feeling this way, right? So I so so that threw me for a loop because I realized that like that there was like this, I was living this alternate universe and I wasn't paying attention to one of the most important people in my life. And like somehow I completely missed it. I completely missed it because I was so focused on me,
Hmm.
right? And because I was so focused on me and what I was accomplishing and how happy I was and what I was building, I left out my partner. And um, and one day she woke up and she said she wasn't happy, right? And and that she wanted a separation. And so I that knocked me on my ass, right? Because I had to learn how to like, okay,
So what was your first response?
what are you talking about? Right? Like disbelief was my first response. How could that be possible? Right? How could you possibly feel that way? Right? Was my first response. What do you like? And what I learned through it was like, if you've ever read the five love languages, right, is that we all interpret our world differently. We all,
I'm not interested in your learning yet. I want to
yeah,
go to, so now you finally get it. It finally hits you, right? It's kryptonite. Uh,
yep.
how'd you let that in? Like, what was that like when you know, you're living in this world where everything is going the way you want it to go, and, you know, and now all of a sudden a big chunk like that. Tell me about that. Like, how'd you let that in so that you could make the change? Because I know your wife, she wouldn't let a superficial change like, oh my God, I got the love languages. That's not going to do it. She wants a real husband. So how
Hmm.
did you let that in?
I think the first thing is I had to take personal responsibility for uh, like all of it, right? I had to take personal responsibility that I had a blind spot, right? I had to take personal responsibility that I was overly focused on something, right? And it was breaking something else. Um, I had to I had to come to terms with maybe a flaw that I had in my character, that I have in my character, that I have in my personality, right? Just like you have to learn your body, I had to learn like how my behavior was
Yeah,
affecting
your worldview. That, so this is the
my
definition of
worldview.
midlife,
Yeah.
right? My worldview, my behavior, the way things were that I thought were working is no longer working, and now I have to change.
I've got to change. I got to change, right? And I have to be willing to change. Am I willing to change, right? Um, and the answer is if they mean something to you, if this means something to you, then you're going to have to change, right? And this is just another wrestling match, Rob. You know how to get through a wrestling match. You're just gonna go and you're gonna tackle it head on. You're gonna figure this out, right? And that's what we did. We figured it out, right? I figured it out. I figured out on my side. I had a massive blind spot. Personal responsibility was my biggest thing, right? Because you could always shift the blame. No, you're not right. You're crazy. You're not thinking right. Like, how could you, right? No, no, no. It is, there is truth. This is two sides to this, right? And so I had to change my worldview, really. And what
Too many people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't take stock and they wouldn't let that in. So that's where the turning point is.
I yeah, I had to change my worldview. By the way, but she also had to change her worldview. Like this is we grow together. I think sometimes as couples you both have to like you got to grow together. Like
Totally a dance.
yeah, it's a dance, right?
So tell
So
me, what's it like now?
it's awesome now. We have the same vision. I mean, we okay. You would have to ask her for me to be 100% right because I was gonna be like, it's awesome.
Actually, the reason I ask, here's the reason I ask. And the reason I point this out is because a lot of people, in the media, in what we read and what we consume, we don't understand that, we get into a relationship, and we get into a relationship sometimes just for our pathologies, but we get into a relationship because this is the match for us. And then we start to grow and change, and things start to shift, and we get through that, that 7-year itch kind of thing, and we get
Mhm.
to the point where Kim got with you, where something's got to change. And most people don't have the stick to itiveness to work through that piece. It took me a long time to understand the difference between sexual attraction and intimacy, right? And it
Mhm.
took, to mature, to go through that no man's land in relationship of, holy shit, what we were isn't what we're going to be, and then to build something else. And now what it looks like is you went from, two young, just beautiful people, with life ambitions and that, and having kids, and then all of a sudden going through that no man's land. And now it's a partnership. It's a mature, really cool, intimate partnership. Does
Yeah,
that describe it?
100% describes it. And what I love about Kim, right, is that she is engaged in life, right? She does her photography. She's engaged in life. She's not relying on me to be engaged in life, nor am I relying on her to be engaged in life, right? Like, and so we both have our interest, and we both come together and share our interests together, right? We've built this life together, and we will continue to build this life together, right? And so so I feel blessed by that, right? Very blessed by that. And it was very difficult to get through to that other side, right? It really was. um
Okay, but can you be so what I'm trying to do is be an advertisement for going through that no man's land, for going through that tough time,
oh,
because the intimacy on the other side is so much more beautiful than the new you could go find.
you know who really helped me with stuff was Dr. Wayne Dyer, right?
Well, you keep going old school, man.
I mean, I'm old school. Like for some reason, like I listened to Dr. Wayne Dyer, and like it was really like I don't know what it was. Like he really helped me. Thank you. Dr. Wayne Dyer, because I he's up there, right? But that there was a lot of wisdom there. And so again, I turned to learn, right? Like I was turned this theme of
What
learning
did
is
what did he teach you?
he taught me about forgiveness, right? He taught me about um, learning to forgive yourself, learning to forgive others, like all of that. Um, that's He taught me to be an outsider looking into the world, right? Objectively, not emotionally, and then being curious about that,
Hmm.
and understanding that, and having love around it, and being empathetic around it, and so it's almost like you remove yourself, and you just kind of become, and you look at everything for potentially what it is, right? Instead of what you think it is, right? Um, and then we all have different maps, right? We all have different maps.
You're dropping so many yellow highlighter moments here. We spend our lives with what we think things are rather than actually trying to see what things really are.
Really are. Now, I will. I know that we're pressed for time. I will kind of leave with this, right? Um, I always I'd have these conversations with my sister, and my sister's really smart. She's an empath. She's I mean, she's an amazing human being. Like if you want to see anybody work a room, that girl can work a room, right? She can work a room. But there's always been this level of frustration that she's had, right? In just things, right? And I would always say, Camille, I, I feel like one of the reasons why I'm optimistically happy is because if you really peel back the onion, I'm not all that bright, right? I'm not all that bright. Meaning, like, there's certain things that just make me happy. A nice warm cup of coffee makes me happy. Looking at the ocean makes me happy, right? Like, why am I dealing with all this You're thinking about all this minutia bullshit that's like weighing on you. Like, you're thinking about things like, why are you even thinking about that? It's like the weight of the world. You're putting the weight of the world on your freaking shoulders. Like, why?
Have you,
Why?
have you watched Ted Lasso?
I have no idea who Ted Lasso
Ted
is.
Lasso is on Apple TV, one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. And Ted Lasso he's the coach of a soccer team, and he says something. He comes up with an animal, and I don't even remember what the animal was, but like the wombat or some stupid animal. And he says, the wombat is the stupidest animal on earth, and it doesn't remember anything that happened yesterday, and it doesn't think about tomorrow. Be the wombat.
Yeah, enjoy the moment, I guess, might be another way to say it, right? And so I feel that what happens is incredibly intelligent people, this is my little map here, incredibly intelligent people sometimes can put so much stress and weight on their own
Totally.
shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately it becomes destructive to them. Just like that breathing issue that I had when I was young, I was so worried about things, it became destructive to me. So I just had to like melt into the box, be the box, right? How do you get out of the box? You got to melt into the box, my friend, right?
Dude.
This is that's it. And so I just don't try to overcomplicate it, you know. There's so many little joys all around us, and that I've just kind of always just tried to focus on that.
Rob, thank. I asked you at the beginning. I said, please bring the substance and what it takes to live a life, and these real. I have people who write books and all this stuff on here, and having a real conversation with a real person who's lived, married, raised kids. Right? We haven't even talked about what raising a daughter and raising a really fiercely independent, individualistic daughter has done to your, opened you up in so many ways.
Oh yeah.
Like I appreciate that, because I want, like most people are what I was a guest on a podcast just before you and I had a conversation, and we were talking about how most men go it alone. Most
Mm,
men don't have friends. Women
mm.
tend to have friends. They have other issues, but men don't have friends and talk about this. So for me in this podcast, anybody who's listening to us talk, they don't have to be alone, right? If they're going through a rough spot in their marriage, if they like, so I really appreciate you bringing it to this conversation.
My pleasure, man. It is it's all the crap that happens to us along the way that defines us. So we should welcome the crap, right? Because that's truly when you know what you're made of. So, you know, I never really read Nietzsche, but I read some of his quotes here recently, and I was like, oh my God, like I 100% agree with that statement. And that goes back to my wrestling days, because I would not carry the self-worth and self-esteem that I have deep inside me if it hadn't been for the fact that I tested myself to the point where I know other human beings on this planet have never tested themselves. Very few, right? And if you get the opportunity to test yourself at a level that you're like, you think you might die, that's where the juice lies. That's why people do the eco challenge. That's why you did the marathon. That's why.
Totally why I did the marathon. You
Yeah,
cannot take away from me any. In fact, my mind can't take away from me when I can't do something, when something seems really hard, when or when I feel like a failure. In fact, that's how my book came out. Is my when I said I called my coach and I said, I can't seem to get anything done. He says, I seem to remember you running a marathon. I'm like,
yeah,
oh yeah, there goes that belief, right? So very cool.
yeah, yeah. I could do anything I want to do. I just have to want to do it, right?
You are the chief visionary officer,
Cool.
right? You are
Yes,
the
sir.
vision. You are the visionary guy. I remember you talking about that. So cool. So where can people find you?
They can go to Instagram, just Rob Chevez, pretty easy, right? They can find, just Google my name. I'm out there, right? I'm everywhere, creating video and content and having fun and making it up as I go along, my friend. just
So,
like every.
so I'm going to put the link to the Kaza Group and to the Grid Investor and all the cool things you're doing in business. And then I'm going to put links to your social media because if I want to be around Rob, you want to be around Rob. Everybody wants to be around Rob, and he's gracious enough to be on social media and let people be around him. So you get to rub off on people. I love your ripple effect.
Ooh, the ripple effect. That's really cool. That's a cool book.
Yes.
So,
So please give my love to your family.
okay.
And thank you for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
To everybody else, again, these are rough times. So remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other. I love you a ton. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a great rest of the day.